The words fell between them like something fragile being dropped on concrete, barely loud enough to hear, yet heavy enough to change the air around them. In the bright middle of an ordinary day, under a sky that looked too blue for bad news, she lowered her eyes and admitted what pride had been fighting to hide all morning. She could not afford this date. She expected disappointment, maybe embarrassment, maybe that quiet withdrawal people do when kindness suddenly feels inconvenient. What she did not expect was the way the single father in front of her paused, breathed, and chose something that would quietly rewrite both their lives. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that moves too fast to notice more struggles, take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Shadowverse. Stories like this exist because people still believe in second chances, and your support keeps them alive. The man's name was Arman Halim, and most people who passed him on the sidewalk that afternoon would have seen nothing unusual. He wore a faded denim jacket, carried himself with a tired but careful posture, and had the calm eyes of someone who had learned to listen more than speak. The city around them was alive with daytime noise, buses sighing at stops, vendors calling out lunch deals, sunlight reflecting off shop windows. It was the kind of hour when people hurried, not expecting life to pause. Arman had learned long ago that life did not ask permission before changing direction. 3 years earlier, it had done exactly that when his wife passed away suddenly, leaving him alone with a 6-year-old son and a grief that never fully slept. Raising a child alone taught Arman how to stretch time and money, how to turn ordinary afternoons into memories, how to keep promises even when exhausted. His son, Zayan, was the reason he woke before sunrise to work extra shifts at a delivery warehouse, the reason he learned how to cook simple meals with love, the reason he kept going on days when loneliness sat beside him like an uninvited guest. Dating had not been part of his plan. He had agreed to meet her, Yasmin Kaur, because something about her quiet humor during their brief online conversations felt safe, almost familiar. They chose a small cafe near a park, nothing extravagant, just a place with sunlight and enough space to talk. Yasmin arrived early, smoothing the sleeves of a simple dress, watching people pass by through the glass. She was used to measuring her life carefully, always calculating what she could afford, what she could not. After her father fell ill, medical bills swallowed her savings, and the job she worked paid just enough to keep her afloat. She had almost cancelled the date, afraid of the moment she was now facing. When Arman suggested ordering, the menu in her hands suddenly felt heavier than it should. That was when the truth escaped her in a whisper she could not take back. Arman did not react the way she braced herself for. He did not laugh awkwardly or rush to reassure her with empty words. He simply looked at her, really looked, noticing the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers curled inward as if apologizing for taking up space. He remembered too well the feeling of counting coins, of pretending everything was fine. In that pause, something inside him softened. He realized this was not about a meal or money. It was about dignity, about trust, about the courage it takes to be honest. The afternoon unfolded differently after that. They ordered simple things, and Arman steered the conversation away from discomfort, asking about Yasmin's love for sketching city streets and old trees, listening as if every detail mattered. Sunlight spilled across the table, and for the first time in weeks, Yasmin felt herself breathe without fear of judgment. They walked through the nearby park afterward, where children played and leaves flickered with light. Arman spoke about his son, about learning how to braid shoelaces into lessons about patience, about discovering strength in places he never expected. Yasmin listened, feeling something steady grow where anxiety had lived. What Yasmin did not know was that Arman's choice that day did not end with kindness in the moment. That evening, after returning home to help Zayan with homework and cook dinner, Arman sat quietly at the small kitchen table long after his son fell asleep. He thought about the way Yasmin's eyes lit up when she talked about drawing, about how quickly she apologized for existing. He recognized that familiar shadow of hardship, and he knew that sometimes, changing a life did not require grand gestures, just consistency and care. Days passed, and Arman found himself looking forward to messages from Yasmin, to their midday walks when schedules allowed. He noticed how she always tried to insist on splitting costs, how she carried herself like someone afraid to lean. Slowly, without making it obvious, Arman created space where she did not have to. He invited her to free art exhibits, picnics with food he prepared at home, afternoons at the park where Zayan's laughter filled the air. Yasmin began to see that affection did not always come with conditions, that generosity could be quiet and respectful. For Arman, balancing work, fatherhood, and a growing connection was not easy. There were days he doubted himself, nights he lay awake wondering if he was doing enough, if he was allowed to want happiness again. The city remained indifferent to his struggles, but within his small world, things were shifting. Yasmin started sketching again, inspired by moments she once rushed past. She drew Armin tying Zian's shoelaces, sunlight catching the dust in the air. She drew the park bench where she first felt seen without being measured by her wallet. Challenges did not disappear. Yasmin still faced financial stress, still worried about her father's health. Armin still juggled bills and exhaustion. But together, they learned that sharing the weight made it lighter. There was a quiet afternoon when Yasmin finally admitted how deeply she feared being a burden. Armin responded not with speeches but with presence, showing up on days when words felt useless. He taught her, without saying it outright, that care given freely does not keep score. The turning point came unexpectedly, on a bright day much like the first. Yasmin received an offer from a small design firm that had noticed her sketches online. It was not a miracle, not instant wealth, but it was a door opening. She cried when she told Armin, overwhelmed by relief and disbelief. He celebrated her achievement with genuine pride, never once implying that he had carried her to this moment. That was the greatest gift he gave her, the belief that her growth was her own. As time moved forward, their lives intertwined naturally. Zian grew attached to Yasmin, trusting her with his stories and drawings. The apartment felt warmer when she visited, filled with quiet routines and shared laughter. Armin watched Yasmin stand taller, speak with more confidence, reclaim parts of herself that hardship had muted. Yasmin watched Armin learn to rest, to accept support without guilt, to imagine a future not defined solely by survival. Near the end of one ordinary day, sunlight slanted through the windows as they sat together, surrounded by sketches, toys, and the soft hum of life continuing. Yasmin thought back to that first whisper, to the fear that nearly kept her from showing up. She realized that what changed everything was not money, but the choice someone made to meet her honesty with compassion. Armin realized the same truth from his side, that kindness, when given without expectation, often returns multiplied. If this story has found a place in your heart, if it reminded you of moments when kindness changed your path or someone else's, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who need the most. Before the final moments, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell us, have you ever experienced a small act of kindness that changed everything for you? The city outside kept moving, unaware of the quiet miracle it hosted. Two people, carrying invisible weights, chose empathy over assumption, patience over pride. In daylight, without dramatic music or grand declarations, they proved that second chances often arrive disguised as simple understanding. And sometimes, all it takes to change a life is listening when someone whispers the truth.